Hey guys, what's up? We're gonna do in this video real quick, I'm gonna show you guys the deck that I would recommend to climb ladder right now. If you're just looking to climb and speed is the only thing you care about, you'll be hitting, diamond and faster, diamond and master faster than your friends. So one of the biggest things I want to touch on though before I get into that is a fundamental of climbing that I think a lot of people kind of like understand but don't quite appreciate how important it is. This is going to be something that is not just going to be applied for this season or even this card game. This is every card game, every time you're in a climbing situation, what do you want to do? And the idea is basically play your games very fast. So what that's going to mean is A, play very, very aggressive decks that are going to be able to end the game fast, and B, you should be comfortable conceding when your odds of winning the game are probably less than like 1 or 2%. So like don't do that whole like never give up thing. You just need to know how to fold, right? To be able to, race up the ranks. So I'm going to give you a great example. This is exactly why a lot of people hate me for recommending my elusive Zed Super OTK deck. That deck was never designed to have the highest win rate on ladder or anything like that. Quite the contrary. It sacrifices win rate to make sure games end very, very fast. That's the entire idea. Because with, Zed standalone or solitaire, Monk standalone, Relentless Pursuit, a lot of your games are ending on like the 90-second mark or like the 2-minute mark. When you have the ability to end games that fast, you will climb much faster, even with a significantly lower win rate. Let me actually show you how the math on that would go, because I think like being able to fully appreciate this, like trust me, like it's probably a bigger difference than it seems. So let's take two comparison games, okay? Two comparison decks. One deck takes 3 minutes on average, and the other takes 9 minutes on average, right? Okay. So if one takes 3 minutes on average and one takes 9 minutes on average, let's say the 3-minute deck has a 55% win rate. Okay. So to be able to match basically this is a fill in the blank. To be able to match the win rate, the MMR per hour, so to be able to equalize this whole thing and to be able to make the MMR per hour of both decks equal, what would the win rate of the second deck have to be? And the answer is 65%. And that's crazy high from a win rate perspective. And basically it's quite simple. If you have plus or minus the same amount, which you do, even when you enter like a kind of like elo based system in masters, it still will on average be effectively plus or minus the same amount. When you reach very high masters, this formula will change because you will always be forced into a much higher win rate to even go positive on MMR. But until you reach masters and even like low masters, this formula will stand. And the reason is because basically when you have just to explain this simply, it's about net difference from 50. So it's like this is 5% net difference, 5% net gain, or it's actually it's better as a function of like wins over losses. So this is 10% more wins than losses, 55 wins and 45 losses, and of course 65 is 30%. That looks like 300. 30% net wins over losses because it's 65 over 35. So it's 3 times the like net win rate. Okay, and basically when you look at this, it looks pretty straightforward, but the thing to understand here is that the difference between a 65% and a 55% win rate is absolutely massive, like absolutely insane. The difference between a 55 and a 65% win rate is like 2 tiers of decks. Like that's the difference between like a tier 3 deck and like a almost better than tier 1 deck, right? Here, if we want to see like the standards for basically like how, we evaluate win rates, and my site uses a lot of metrics and win rate is one of those, but like, yeah, a 55% win rate can easily be bucketed into tier 3. And yes, 60 is like the kind of like benchmark for tier 1, if anything. So yes, it's like absolutely massive difference of win rate demanded just to get the same MMR per hour as a deck that plays games much faster. And of course, this is like, 3 times is a very exaggerated situation, or well, not even necessarily. It could be exaggerated depending on the 2 decks you're choosing, because there are some extremely slow decks out there. But yeah, it's kind of like the extreme situation for sure. Now, you might say, well, if everyone's playing aggro, then, wouldn't it be better to maybe play like some control strategy and counter them? And the irony of that is, and this can depend on the game and this can depend on the meta for sure, but there are often situations where even though you are playing the counter deck, because your deck is very slow, the aggro players will still be climbing faster than you, even though you're on the counter deck, which is not always true. But the fact that like that's kind of the whole point of this, is that you sacrificing win rate for speed of game is always going to lead to a faster climb, right? And this is part of the reason why we have to think of card games in a very flexible way. Win rate isn't the only metric, and this might seem like a weird edge counter example where it's like, yeah, but win rate should matter all the other times, right? Well, it really depends. Tournament formats are going to exchange like the value you put on a metric like win rate over like, you know, perceived variance. For example, you're going to want different demands when you are, you know, lower on ladder versus higher on ladder. Like when you approach like high masters, you're going to want a very, very specific type of deck. You're going to want basically a non-meta deck that's able to engineer a really high controlled win rate at the cost of, you know, maybe probably capitalizing off of some opponent's misplays, honestly, is usually the best bets for things that are going to get to rank 1. And that's why we were able to get rank 1 with Prankster Burn. Prankster Burn is not a strong deck, right? It's not a tier 1 deck. It's not a tier 2 deck even. It's like a tier 3 deck. But you're able to basically get a lot of surprise value in against people that don't know how to play around the deck, and that's exactly what you need when you're going from like rank 20 on your ladder to rank 1. That's what you're going to want for that. So it's just important to think about like different situations demanding different kinds of decks, and to just be really flexible in your approach, because I think like really basic just like bait trap in the beginning is like, well, win rate should be the only thing that matters, and it is important, but it's definitely not the only thing that matters. Okay, so now that we got that explanation out of the way, here's the deck. I'm sorry, I wanted to like I like doing this thing when I like do videos and stuff. I really like the idea of basically trying to teach you guys fundamentals. I really want to be like, you know the approach of teach a guy how to catch a fish instead of giving him the fish, you know? I want to be able to help you guys understand deck building fundamentals so you can build your own decks. I want you guys to be able to think in the right ways so that, you know, you can you know, fly on your own. You know what I'm saying? You feel me? Unfortunately, it's the reality that most people just want simple answers, the simple net decks. But you'll permit me. Thank you for, you know, letting me put that like 6-minute interlude at the start. Anyway, this is the deck here in question. And basically, you'll notice this is not, you know, a super new concept. This is just a aggro burn. It is refined with, like, you know, some of the new cards. And Noxian Fervor and Imperial Demolitionist are really strong in this strategy. But this is basically just a kill your opponent very quick deck. That's it. It's not only kill your opponent very quick, but you're also usually dodging a lot of board removals because, of course, you know, you're if they remove your board, they're usually at low health, and then you can just kill them with your over the top tools like direct burn damage, burn being spells that direct damage to face. Anyway, this is the deck I would recommend. We're gonna go ahead and get into this right before I show you guys some example games real quick, because, you know, this is going to be a pretty basic guide, but I'm going to show you example games. Right before we get into that, let me tell you to check the pinned comment for the link to this deck, because if I make any edits to this, which I will, I'll probably change 1 or 2 cards, probably nothing major, then you'll find the updated version exactly there. That's also how you can import it into your own collection. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get into our game here. This is a mirror, which is not unexpected. This is a deck that I think, like, when you're playing, like, ranked right now, literally start of the season, it's like less than 24 hours after ranked came out. A lot of people like playing ranked, especially not like at like plat or higher. Plat is like the seed for like diamond, so pretty much all of these are or sorry, plat is the seed for masters, so pretty much everyone we're queuing against is masters players that are just in a rush to get back to masters, right? Anyway, the mulligan here is going to be fairly straightforward. Hopefully we'll see some other games so I can show you guys some mulligans out of there. But mostly, we're just looking for early drops. I think I would almost always keep Draven in the opening hand. I might take like an aggressive mulligan if we didn't have a lot of other things. So we've got Precious Pet versus Saboteur. It's a little bit of an unfortunate start since he's attacking at odds. And when you have the odds attack, you are in a pretty good position here. We pretty much are going to have to take this block. I don't know if we're going to be better positioned. The awkward thing is we can't play Demolitionist on 2 with a Precious Pet, so we're likely going to have to play Grenadier on 2. And this block doesn't get better. So our pet goes negative to the Saboteur by -1, which is, yeah, pretty much always how pet versus Saboteur works. Saboteur is actually pretty good in the mirror. It's kind of a weak card in general, but the mirror is a matchup where it hits pretty big. It's always going to be good value. So it is actually something I'm considering putting more of, just because the mirror has become fairly common. So, I mean, we could take an attack here. We have the block on Precious Pet anyway, so there's not really, I would say, like a pressing reason to take the attack. If you have the ability to block them next turn, you know, there's almost never a reason to take that attack like that. We've got a Draven here, though, which feels pretty alright. Unfortunately, he's got Rookie. Now, one of the interesting counters to Boomker Rookie in this deck is, well, it's actually Crimson Disciple. And the reason for that is a little awkward. So, here, let's go ahead and look at this. I'm actually pretty happy doing a Spinning Axe here, oddly enough. I really do want to kill the Rookie on one additional hit. He can only protect it with Transfusion, and that would only save my Grenadier, which is really important. And then his Boom Crew would still go down to 2 health, which still matters. I think Transfusion is definitely decently likely. The fact that he'd have to sacrifice his pet for it is really expensive, though. The question is, can we afford to drop an entire card here for it? It's so expensive taking a discard. We do have Jinx in hand, which will allow us to kind of like reclaim this position. I think I will actually do this. Just because we have Jinx in hand, I wouldn't take this aggressive of a discard otherwise. But yeah, I definitely semi-expect a Transfusion here. It seems pretty likely. I personally have cut this list down to 1 Transfusion because I find that it's a little clunkier than it has been because, you know, Imperial Demolitionist, it feels a little less necessary. But 2 might be a little more standard right now. Okay. And yeah, that's not too bad. It's like he had to waste an entire card and then let my Grenadier live, which is a very big deal. He really doesn't want to let my Grenadier live. So here we've got 2 options. It's either Rookie plus Demolitionist, or it's Draven, which is a little less mana efficient. Rookie plus Demolitionist is a really good pressure threat. It can only be stopped by, like, it gets pretty punished if he plays something that has 3 attack. Like, if he plays his own Grenadier, or if he plays a Jinx or a Draven, well, Jinx probably wouldn't want to block. But like anything blocking the Rookie or the Boomker Rookie at 3 health is probably going to get just like 2 devalued. I actually, oddly enough, would probably think about favoring the Draven here, even though it's like less average value. I think it's a bit less counterable. The question is basically, do you feel like you're in a position where you are able to play around those counters? And I actually do. I feel pretty okay here. With a good hand like this, you can often outvalue the opponent, even if they are, you know, threatening a decent amount. So this is a pretty solid attack, right? I mean, you just look at what's happening here. Like, he had to sacrifice the Transfusion to go negative to me, and because we have Jinx in our hands, which is hard for him to have because Jinx is a mulligan target. You're usually mulliganing Jinx away. Because we have Jinx and the second Draven, we can probably just out-sustain him. So I think we're not really in a position where we need to take, like, any sort of, like, weird risk. Okay. This seems solid. The big scare card is going to be Whirling Death from him. Now, the odds of him having the second Draven, I would say, are pretty low. I mean, I think they're quite low. I would never put a person on having second Draven here. I think this is a fine block, and even if he's at odds for second Draven, it's never going to be high enough not to take this block, I think. So, it's something that could happen, second Draven into Whirling's Death, but either way, we don't feed this other Draven. Our Grenadier is going to be a perfectly valuable attacker later. Draven is always just going to get an unblocked damage, and that's why he's so good. Draven just being one of the best champs in the game. Very underrated. I've been running him in everything. You guys know, like, I just put Draven in my Spiders deck. I put Draven in my aggro decks. Like, I can't run Nox aggro without running Draven. I tried, and I literally cannot. Okay, so now we can develop this board a little bit wider. We've got, like, Boomker Rookie. We have the potential to play out Jinx, but I think we're not really in quite enough of a hurry yet. We will play her later, but we just want to own the board and play for value. I say that, I like to say that one of the strategies of Runeterra, or kind of like mana-based card games in general, is the idea of you want to play a little bit slower than your opponent or a lot faster. Now, this is a generalization, don't get me wrong, like, there's plenty of exceptions to this, But the idea is, you know, when you have like Nexus health as a resource, then you're better off like using a bit of that Nexus health to the point where if your deck is a bit slower than them and you stabilize a bit after them, you will kind of like gain an advantage overall. Whereas if your deck is, you know, wow, he's going down to 1. I mean, he can't really survive at 1, so he's forced to take a block here. If your deck's a lot slower than theirs, or, you know, theirs is a lot faster than yours, then you're kind of going to just die before you can come online, right? And that's kind of where you see, like, this common triangle in a lot of games, which is, like, you know, slow decks beat medium speed decks beat fast speed decks, and fast speed decks beat slow decks, basically. Or some people can say aggro mid-range control, which is, you know, usually what you'll see. But it's not actually always exactly that pattern. So he's using Draven's Big Boy. I can go ahead and use Noctian Fervor direct to face here. No need to, you know, do anything weird. No need to put the spinning axes on the stack yet, because his deck can't stop a Decimate, right? So if he does something else, which we're worried about him doing, then we'll spinning axe. For example, you know, he uses something to kill my Legion Grenadier, well then I would spinning axe my Boom Crew Rookie, right? And it's important to have that reactivity. It's important to, you know, be able to counter which one goes. So what I was saying about faster, medium speed, and slower, because you want to be a little slower or a lot faster than your opponent, what that means is in mirror matches, you pretty much always want to slow down a bit, because mirror matches are same speed, right? So if you play a little bit slower than the mirror, you're kind of always going to come out ahead. And that means, like, playing more for value, just a little bit, not, you know, don't super greed it, but play a bit more for value rather than, you know, going all in for tempo, right? Which is, tempo basically means like short-term speed, you know, pressure, and value is like long-term, mostly card advantage. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get into our second game here. I'll probably just show you guys just one more. This is a pretty straightforward deck. There are some, for sure, nuances. It's not necessarily an easy deck to play. I think a lot of people look at aggro and just see fucking SM work and they're like, oh god, this is gonna be so easy. When in reality, it can be. I would say it has like a low skill floor, but a high skill ceiling nonetheless. So we shouldn't overestimate it. With a hand like this, you really have to consider the opponent. Against like a Misfortune Ash deck, I'm still not exactly sure what to expect from Misfortune Ash. I think Grenadier has a hard time finding value against like one attack or 1/1 blockers typically, so I don't want to keep that. Demolitionist is really powerful, but actually you don't often want to play it on turn 2. I think we're going for a full mulligan here. You really want to keep things that you actually want to be playing for value early. We took a bit of a greedy mulligan, kicking the, I would say kicking the, wait, what, Grenadier? Yeah, Grenadier. Kicking the Grenadier might have been a bit greedy, but I feel like that card has actually a really hard time finding good value in that matchup. So you think, what's that deck playing on 2? It is unlikely our attack will be better than 3 damage here. So we'll take the 3 damage that we have. It's like, yeah, hired gun is decently likely. So what that would mean is, I mean, we would have the less than 3 damage attack, right? Like our attacker would be the same, rear guard, and maybe it would kill hired gun, but that's kind of like, you know, we're not getting in as much damage. So you kind of want to play safe when you can and greedy when you can't. I would say one really important thing is to think of like whether you should open attack or develop, similarly to how you would I like to compare it. Ooh, I don't actually know if I can play Cask Salesman here. Wow, there's a consideration to just get excited the Misfortune. That's kind of crazy. Because the rear guard will kind of disable the Cask Salesman. He doesn't feel good attacking into the rear guard. I like to compare the idea of attacking to open attacking to like pot odds in poker. You have to look at it in terms of whether you're priced in to take a risk or not, right? Whoa. Okay. I'll take this block. This attack is basically signaling that he has Elixir of Iron, or that he's just kind of made a mistake. Almost certainly an Elixir of Iron. This will force it out, and honestly, I don't really mind that. I think I'm pretty alright with that. Like, he will be losing out on value, unless we think there's a 0% chance that that was his intention. Yeah, let's just do this. I think I think this has to be a really strong telegraph. I'm not playing in normals. I'm playing, like I said, everyone here is like a Masters player in last season, just trying to get back to Masters. I'm gonna give these guys respect. I'm not gonna make weak plays. I'll put them 100% on Elixir of Iron. Well, not literally 100%, but I'll put them very high on Elixir of Iron. Sorry, I interrupted myself again. Anyway, we've got Transfusion on the attack. We can either attack open and double threaten Transfusion Mystic Shot, or we can Rookie develop into the attack and then get our choice of either. Now on 4, what's he gonna play that could, you know, threaten some blockers? He could play a few things. Even just like a keg would be kind of annoying. I think I want to stay flexible. I think with a trick heavy hand, you really have to be going into open attacks like this. And I think the Transfusion, when he goes into block the Disciple of Fortune, the Transfusion is going to get really good value.
I know what I'm doing.
So we've got Transfusion and Mystic Shot. Likely we'll have to use both. The Transfusion target is going to be... wow. What should I use first? The Mystic Shot will likely just get traded with an Elixir of Iron, but it might affect where I'm transfusioning. And I always know that I'm Mystic Shotting the Misfortune, I think. Let's Mystic Shot the Misfortune first and see what happens. I think he should always be saving this. Usually it's an Elixir of Iron. So Brittle Steel, that's interesting. See, this changes our play. Now, because we took the Flexil approach, now we can think to ourselves, okay, maybe we take the Transfusion now at higher value. So which do we want to damage? Well, we want to watch out for Make It Rain, which means if we send the damage to our Cask Salesman, his 2-3 might get to stay alive. I think I'd actually rather damage my rear guard just to ensure his 2-3 dies, especially because rear guard is both can't block and vulnerable. He's got some nasty tags on him. Okay, so we feel a bit better. Now, he'll probably counter trick again. I expect the Elixir of Iron, but either way, we have gotten more value out of playing the Mystic Shot before the Transfusion. If we'd played the Transfusion first, you know, he's going to be able to respond in a much better way. For example, he'll Brittle Steel like the Cask Salesman or something, for sure.
Look what you
Okay, down to 10 on 4. That's really good timing. I mean, we have over the top in our hand. We feel great. So that's really interesting. So the thing he was sitting on was not Elixir of Iron, it was Brittle Steel, which makes sense. Or he just wanted to curve out the Navigator and he's got the second Elixir here. That could be as well. So we're just gonna start trading and going direct to face.
Of course I'm ready.
It's pretty much that simple. Okay, so unsurprisingly, you know, this is gonna be killing off the rear guard. He's gonna have like an additional free attack. I think I just want to send direct to face. So I'm pretty good here. I guess I can like Noxian Fervor. Fervoring here is like maybe a bit counterable. Anything that deals 1 damage at fast speed will stop the Fervor from going off. The question is, do we get a less counterable Fervor later? He's at 2 mana. Wow. I think if he had Make It Rain. Oh god, he really could have Make It Rain still. This is a risk. I think with a hand like this, it's probably the best risk I can take, actually. Make It Rain is definitely all over his range.
love ya.
I admit, I still haven't finished the explanation I was talking about open attacking. I have this weird problem where I interrupt myself a lot. It's awkward. Okay, so now he can, you know, attack into the vulnerable thing. So he's saving himself a bit of health here. So blocking with Disciple basically just does 2 damage, and then we're just gonna over the top with our 5. The block makes it get damaged by Love Tap, which of course will just potentially kill him in the air. Off of whatever top deck I have, that's 5 damage. Okay, so I was saying it's like pot odds in poker, right? So it's about the risk versus reward. It's about what you're giving up versus what you're sending away, right? So it's like, you should think of it not as anything involving damage, but as a ratio of the damage you have versus the damage you'll potentially get. So like when we developed into that attack, I'm talking about turn 2, when we had rear guard on the potential open, we were thinking about developing a disciple. We have the 3 damage guaranteed, unless he plays a trick, and the trick is always going to have consistent value. We have the 3 damage guaranteed, and we're risking 3 to get a total of 5. We're risking 3 to get 2, and when you're thinking about a low value risk like that, it's usually not worth taking. There's a lot of plays you can make on 2 that could punish us there. So if you're in a different situation, if your attack damage on board is like 2 and you're risking 2 to get like, 5 total, if it's reversed, if your setup on the open attack is 2 damage and your next play is 3 damage, that's a lot more worth it. I would probably do that in probably a good amount of boards, but overall that's how you need to be thinking about like whether to open attack or whether to develop. Anyway, that's it. That's the kind of quick, this is my aggro burn guide. This is what I would consider to be the best kind of no fun deck right now. Ultimately, that's what this deck is. This is a no fun allowed deck. Like, you're gonna be playing against players trying a lot of new shit. They're gonna be playing all their fun decks. They're gonna be like, it's like I'm playing Maokai Mill. Oh, I'm playing Sea Monsters. Oh, I'm playing, what fucking Gangplank. This is basically just saying, no, you don't get to have fun. We're playing aggro. Any fun, because the thing about fun strategies is usually they're slow. That's usually true in card games, not always, but usually on average it will be true. So typically decks like this that are just geared to endgame super quick, like we just did there, we'll just basically dick over anyone trying to have fun and mess around with cool new ideas. Anyway, I have to head off now because at time of recording, I'm actually late to start my stream. So I'm going to go stream now. If you guys want, you can come say hi. It's over at twitch.tv/swimstream. I talk with my chat and you can tell me how much you hate me for posting decks like this and ruining the ladder experience. Vent, come, it'll be fun. Anyway, I'll see you there. Later, boys.